Gardenia Bakeries KL Sdn Berhad has assured customers that the supply of their products will not stop. The well-known bread manufacturer had in a brief statement said daily deliveries to the supermarket and other outlets will continue as usual. It also urged customers to buy according to normal needs and daily consumption.
Hi and Assalamualaikum everyone. In this video, we will share for you about the processing of bread. Bread have been a prominent food in a large part of the world, such as our own country, Malaysia. There are a lot of combinations are made that produce different type, size, and texture depending to the traditional recipe from each country. Bread is a product made by wheat flour, water, salt, and yeast. Basic process involved in the making of bread is mixing of ingredients and followed by the baking of dough into a loaf. We have seen or even tasted a lot of type of bread from different countries such as Italian bread, olive bread, and garlic bread. But today, we will focus to a wide type of bread that produced by a Malaysian company called Gardenia. Gardenia started as a small store bakery at Bukit Timah Plaza in 1978. In August 1986, Gardenia expanded its operation by building a modern bakery that utilized the latest processing technique. So, how does the company manufacture the bread? What are the hazards that need to be prevented during the process?
Now, let's head to the next part, which is the objectives of the case study. The first thing is to learn the history of Gardenia bread. In this video, we will know the origin or history of the establishment of the Gardenia Bakery Company, which is now famous all over the world. The second is to learn the process of making the Gardenia bread. In this video, we will look at ways to make Gardenia bread, starting from the first step, which is the ingredient, to the last step, where the bread is ready to be eaten by everyone. The last objective is to overcome the problem occurred during the process. During the process of making Gardenia bread, there may be some problems that arise that can affect the bread, either its production or quality. For example, the durability of bread decreases.
So now let's dive into the steps involved in the bread manufacturing process. First, we start by adding milk into the bowl. Milk is used to add flavor and enrich the dough. Water can also be used to replace milk. Next, we add some sugar into the bowl. Microorganisms used in bread making is yeast. It plays important roles in producing best bread. Yeast fed off simple sugar, break them down into carbon dioxide, ethanol, gives flavor, molecule, and energy. The carbon dioxide produced will help bread to rise, increase its volume, and also responsible for leavening in baking. We also add flour and some water to provide structure for the bread. It will form gluten, which will stretch and expand during rising, and it also affect the strength of the bread. The next step is kneading the dough. These steps involve stretching and folding the dough in a rhythmical manner that develops the gluten in flour and release excess gas. Sprinkle the surface with flour and scrape the dough over. If the dough still sticks after adding flour, let it sit for 5 minutes to allow water to absorb the flour. This will make the dough easier to handle. This is an important step to create structure and strength in the dough. After the ingredients are mixed, it needs to be kneaded so that gluten develop and create a structure that allows for the trapping of gases and the dough to rise. It is the yeast that undergo the cellular respiration. Yeast start off with aerobic respiration, creating carbon dioxide in water, helping the dough to rise. After the oxygen soon runs out, anaerobic respiration begins.
During this period, the bacteria in yeast consumes the glucose decomposed from autolysis and release carbon dioxide and ethanol, which carbon dioxide is used to help bread rise and ethanol dissolve during baking. It's the formation of tiny air bubbles which cause the dough to rise. But instead of parting to let the gas out, the flexible dough trapped pockets of carbon dioxide inflating as it does so, and creates wide open pores inside the loaf. Once the dough has risen, it's ready to go in the oven. When it is under high temperature, a complex chemical reaction occurs on the surface. The carbon molecule contained in the sugar combine with the amino acids of the proteins. This chemical recombination is the Maillard reaction. Melanodin is one of the potential end products. This acts as brown pigments, giving the bread its brown coloration. Hundreds of other organic compounds also form. A subset of this can contribute to new flavors and aroma. And the last step in bread making is cooling. The main goal of cooling is to decrease the internal temperature of the baked bread from coming out of the oven to the room temperature. Bread can be cooled either manually by placing on cooling racks after depaning or automatically using racks, trays, and continuous conveyor belts. Cooled bread is immediately sliced, baked, or packaged.
Here are some of the problems that occurs while producing the Gardenia bread. The first one is the bread crust is soggy. This is because of the bread was not cooled properly. The bread needs to be removed from the pan immediately after the baking process and cool it on a rack for about an hour until the temperature is slightly over the room temperature, so that it will prevent from developing the water vapor that makes the bottom of the bread crust become moist and soggy. The second problem is the dough will become sticky and fall apart. Over-kneaded dough is the main reason for these problems. In the making of bread, it only requires 8 to 10 minutes for the dough to be kneaded. If it is too long, then the dough will become hard to shape. But if the dough was kneaded in a right amount of time, then the dough will become extendable and silky texture will appear. This is because when the dough is kneaded, the carbon dioxide will release and the gluten network will form so that it will produce the perfect dough for the bread. So the last one is the dough did not rise. The reason why these problems happen is because the temperature and humidity in the fermentation room is not suitable. The dough is supposed to be kept in the fermentation room under well-controlled temperature and humidity for about 4 hours, so that the carbon dioxide will release and the dough will rise. This ferment process helps the dough to develop a unique aroma, taste, and texture of the Gardenia bread.
Before we end our video, I will conclude what we have learned today. First of all, there are several stages of bread processing, which is mixing, kneading, rising, baking, and cooling. By following all the process, a good quality of bread can be produced. Second, identification of problem occur from bread processing, such as dough did not rise or dough is sticky and fall apart, can be prevented in manufacturing if each step are fully followed along the process. I hope you learned something from our video. Thank you and see you next time.
You can taste the difference in Gardenia. So you can